Zeno's 10 paradoxes. The first paradox is the dichotomy paradox, and it says that in order to get from point A to point B, one has to get halfway first. But in order to get from point A to the halfway point, you need to get halfway first. And there's an infinite amount of halfway points that one needs to get before they get from point A to point B. Therefore, motion is not real because there's no way to get from point A to point B. The Achilles paradox says that in order for a faster runner to catch up to a slower runner with a head start, at any given time the faster runner has to reach a point where the slower runner was at that given time. But by the time the faster runner reaches that point, the slower runner is ahead, so the faster runner has to reach the next point where the slower runner is. This means that the faster runner will never be able to overtake the slower runner. The arrow paradox says that at any given time, an arrow in motion cannot move to a new position because there's no time to do so. But it can also not move to where it already is since it's already there. Therefore, at every point in time, there is no motion, so motion is impossible. The moving rows paradox says that if there's a row of 4 stationary A's, a row of 4 B's moving to the right, and a row of 4 C's moving to the left at the same speed, then by the time they're all parallel to each other, the first B should have passed 4 A's and 4 C's, which is what Zeno predicts. But in reality, the first B only passes 2 A's and 4 C's. Therefore, Zeno concludes that 4 units is equal to 2 units, and 2 times the time is equal to half the time. Zeno's alike and unlike paradox says that if two seemingly different things share a characteristic, then their plurality is non-existent because they're the same thing. Therefore, Zeno would say that this piece of grass and this tree are the same because they're both green. He'd also say that this kitchen pot and this can of cookies are the same because they're both red. And a pack of almonds and an apple is the same because they're both light and easy to toss. The limited and unlimited paradox says that while there's a limited number of everything, everything is also unlimited because between two things lies another object, and between that lies another object. For example, between these two pieces of wood, there lies a piece of grass, and between the grass and the wood lies a leaf, and between the wood and the leaf lies another piece of wood, and between the two pieces of wood, there's a stick. This goes on forever and ever, so Zeno concludes that everything's unlimited even though it seemed like everything was limited. In the large and small paradox, Zeno says that every part of all pluralities are small because they have no size. But every plurality has a subpart, and that subpart has another subpart, which has another subpart, which has another subpart, and this goes on forever and ever. Therefore, Zeno concludes that all pluralities are small because they have no size, but all pluralities are large because they have an infinite number of subparts. The infinite divisibility paradox says that objects are not able to be divided into a plurality of parts because of 3 problems that occur when they are reassembled. The first problem is that once something is divided into a point where it can no longer be divided, you are left with nothing and it cannot be reassembled. The second problem is that you are left with elements that have 0 size, and reassembling them would result in nothing. The third problem is that if the elements left have a size, this means that they can be divided further, so they are not ready to be reassembled. The grain of millet paradox says that if a barrel of grains falls over, it makes a sound. But each grain should also make a sound, and each infinite part of that grain should make a sound as well. Since we don't hear the sound of every part of the grain, it is impossible for the barrel to make a sound. So Zeno would say that you wouldn't be able to hear the sound that these pieces of wood just made because you can't hear the sound of each infinite part of the wood. Zeno's last paradox is the against place paradox, and it says that everything that exists has a place. So the hammock has a place. This flower has a place. These leaves have a place, and the gazebo has a place. But since place is something that exists, it must have a place too. So the hammock's place has a place, and the flower's place has a place, and the leaves' place has a place, and the gazebo's place has a place. So therefore, there are an infinite number of places.